When Kevin got to his office at Williams Media, he found out that the company's shares were about to tank. He suspected that the Williams family was behind the manipulation of stocks in the largest companies in Chicago. He called his Uncle Thomas to find out if he was behind it. The family wanted him to come back to New York to talk it out with his grandfather. Kevin didn't answer him, he just hung up the phone. Then he tapped on his desk while he thought about what to do. He couldn't understand how the Williams family had suddenly found enough money to do this. Their situation was desperate. After thinking for a while, Kevin decided to call Mitchell Cook, Adriana Wright, Gilbert Rhodes, and the others to come to an emergency meeting at his office. Within an hour, they'd all arrived. "Mr. Williams, what's going on? Why did the Williams family suddenly launch this financial attack on Chicago?" Adriana was the first to ask.
"With their influence, they'll have no trouble taking over all the major industries in the city. But the way they're doing it, they'll destroy the entire economy," Cook said bitterly.
As the most prominent business leaders in Chicago, they naturally found who was behind this madness, but they didn't understand the reason behind it. Gilbert Rhodes suddenly stood up, looked directly at Kevin, and asked, "Mr. Williams, are they doing this to get even with you?" It's useless to dwell on that now. The important thing is that the Williams family has already made their move, Kevin said stoically. Hearing this, Cook and the others were unsure how to respond to the threat. "Let's not get pessimistic. The reason I called you here today is to discuss countermeasures," Kevin said confidently. "Mr. Williams, just tell me what to do. We'll support you with all we've got, no matter what," Emo Squire said very frankly. "That's right. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today," Adriana said optimistically. Mitchell Cook and Gilbert Rhodes didn't say anything, but they nodded in agreement. Kevin thought for a moment and said, "Although the situation looks critical, it doesn't mean that the Williams family will definitely succeed. The first step we need to take is to stabilize the stock market. Let's use our money to push back at them."
"Kevin is right. We definitely can't avoid it. They're playing rough, so we will too. Even if it kills us, we'll make sure they don't get out of this unhurt," Mitchell Cook said forcefully. Within an hour of the meeting, everyone in the stock exchange was shocked. As everyone watched, the Williams Group stepped up and invested $3 billion. After that, Mitchell Cook, Adriana, and the others followed suit. Each of them took billions of dollars and poured everything they could into the stock market. The enormous transfers of funds attracted everyone's attention. When the stock market closed in the afternoon, they had managed to stabilize Chicago's financial position. Cook and the others promised that they would follow Williams Media's lead and match Kevin's actions. They vowed to protect Chicago's financial base, even if it cost them their lives and their fortunes. That night, the Jones family held a meeting in their mansion. "How much of our stock fell today?" Grandma Jones asked with a gloomy expression. "Grandma, our shares dropped by 60%, one of her nephews said with a depressed look on his face. "Grandma, I have a suggestion, but I don't know if everyone will agree." "Oh, what do you suggest?" "Didn't Williams Media lead the way today? Why don't we take half of our shares and buy into their company?" Jason explained carefully. "That way, however this turns out, we'll at least be able to maintain half of our wealth." "That's right. We can ask Williams Media for help," one of his uncles replied. But they still weren't sure if Williams Media would go along with this. They also weren't sure they'd be able to work together. Kevin, who was standing next to Lily, frowned slightly when he heard this. He instantly understood Jason's ultimate goal. "Lily, what do you think about Jason's proposal?" "It's up to you to decide, Grandma," Lily said with a sullen look on her face. The Jones Corporation shares were dropping in value and they were practically bleeding money. They didn't see any other way to stop it. "All right, since you said that the decision is up to Grandma, then you'll have to contribute 50% of the company's shares," Jason said deviously. "Jason, what do you mean? What right do you have to make my wife turn over all her shares? 60% of the company's shares are now in Lily's hands. If she doesn't do this, then who will?" Jason said with a sour look on his face.
If she still considers herself to be a member of the Jones family, then she needs to do this right now. Jason, you have no shame. How dare you disagree with me? Jason grumbled. From what you're saying, it sounds like Lily isn't willing to go along with this plan anyway. Lily, what do you think we should do? Grandma Jones asked in a slow, calculating voice. Grandma, as long as you think it's appropriate, I have no objections. No, Kevin shouted. What did you say? Grandma Jones said as she looked at Kevin angrily. If we must use our shares for this transfer, Grandma, you should contribute 20% and my wife should give 30%. Moreover, after the crisis is resolved, the shares should revert to their respective owners, Kevin said matter-of-factly. How dare you? Grandma Jones yelled as she banged her fist on her armrest. Do you have the right to speak here? Get out! Grandma Jones stared at Kevin menacingly. Kevin suddenly sneered and said, You people are really funny. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at the Jones family. You do consider yourselves to be a family, don't you? How could you be so desperate? First, you want to use my wife and exchange her for Merriweather shares. Now that the shares are in her hands, you want to trick her into giving them back to you. Can't you see how funny that is? Everyone stared at him awkwardly, but none of them refuted him because they knew he was telling the truth. Someone, throw him out of here! Who's willing to take the first swing? Kevin knew they wouldn't try anything. They'd all seen how he pulverized Merriweather in just a couple of minutes. All right, Kevin, Lily said as she suddenly stood up and took him by the hand. She turned to Grandma Jones and said, Grandma, it's getting late. Let's talk about this again tomorrow. When Kevin got to the office the next day, Miss Wilson had already been waiting for him for half an hour. Sir, many of our senior executives want to have a meeting with you. Okay. Have them wait for me in the meeting room in half an hour. Next, Kevin checked the company's stock situation on his computer. As the markets opened, their share prices fell by 10%. By now, they had already lost hundreds of millions. Kevin sighed slightly and took out the bracelet that he'd bought from Reuben at Phoebe's antique store. What's the use? While he was turning the bracelet over and over in his hand, he started to feel more relaxed and confident. That's odd, he thought to himself. Then he took a closer look at the stone that was set in the bracelet. It wasn't a green emerald at all. It was actually a green tourmaline. How could he have made such a rookie mistake? But it did explain why he was drawn to it in the first place. Kevin slowly put the bracelet on the table. After thinking for a moment, he decided to call Officer Emmett to ask her opinion. After all, she had set him on the path to making herbal remedies. Maybe she knew something about this, too. Hello, Kevin? What do you want? Officer Emmett answered in a surprised tone. I was wondering what you might know about green tourmaline. I was wondering when you might ask me something like that, she said frankly. A lot of people believe that certain stones can help you to focus your energy to relax or work on your health. Things like that. Interesting, Kevin smiled and said. I felt drawn to a tourmaline bracelet the other day at the antique store. What do you think? Why should I tell you? Officer Emmett said jokingly. I'm serious, Kevin insisted. I'll tell you, but you need to say please, Officer Emmett replied mischievously. Come on, I'm serious. Kevin was starting to get frustrated. He knew she was just teasing, but he didn't have a lot of time for this today. Come on, just once. What's the magic word? Officer Emmett tried again. Okay, please, Kevin said in a very low voice. I'm sorry I can't hear you. Could you speak up? Officer Emmett said in a satisfied tone. Kevin took a deep breath and said very clearly, Please. That's better, Officer Emmett said. Come to the downtown Luxbank's office in an hour. Don't forget to bring the bracelet. I'll explain everything to you then. See you later. She hung up before Kevin could say goodbye. Miss Wilson came into Kevin's office as soon as he put his phone in his pocket. Mr. Williams, all the senior executives are waiting for you in the conference room. Kevin nodded and left the office. This was the first high-level meeting that Kevin had held since he took over Williams Media, so a lot of them didn't have a great impression of his leadership abilities. As soon as he walked into the conference room, one of the vice presidents stood up and said, "Mr. Williams, we can't fight this anymore. Even if we win, we'll suffer heavy losses." The executives were all panicked about what the Williams family was doing to their company. They were willing to give up and let them buy them out if that was what it took to save Williams Media. Kevin sat patiently and listened to them. Finally, Kevin's eyes swept across the room before he slowly said, "Are you all done?" "Sir, I strongly recommend that we give in," one of the older, more experienced executives said firmly. "How much money did the Williams family offer you to make you react like this?" When he said this, the entire meeting room grew quiet. Kevin leaned forward in his chair and looked everyone in the eye one by one before he said, "I came to this meeting today to tell you something. If anyone feels that fighting the Williams family is a mistake, please leave now." Then Kevin sat back in his chair feeling very confident and relaxed. He knew that they would get through this, but he just wasn't sure how.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.